Hey everybody, welcome to Top Rack Facts. Today, we're going to go over 25 unthinkable facts about prison you won't believe. Make sure to watch until number 1, because it's one of the most insane facts I've ever heard about prison. If it's your first time here, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notification so you get notified whenever we upload a new video here and this channel. Trust me, you do not want to miss out on what we have in store. Also, make sure you watch this video to the end to find out the most insane fact about prison. We're sure you've never heard this before. Number 25. You can run for presidency from prison. This one is a bit crazy, but actually, there's really nothing limiting your dream and ambition. It is possible to run for the job of President of the United States from prison and be voted for. In fact, Eugene Debs did this in 1920 in Georgia, and surprisingly, he received nearly 1 million votes from prison. If you think this fact is simply insane, make sure you watch till the end to find out the craziest fact about prison. Number 24. 40% of people in prison are African American, 20% are Hispanic. Averaged over the nation's state prisons, African Americans are sent to prison at a rate just over 5 times more than whites. In some states, they are 10 times more likely to end up behind bars. 1 in 9 black men between the ages of 20 to 34 is behind bars. For Hispanic men, their rate of incarceration to white males is 1.8 times. 4,347 Hispanic men in a population of 100,000 are imprisoned. The imprisonment rate for black women is twice the rate of imprisonment for white women. For Hispanic women, they were imprisoned at 1.3 times the rate of white women. Number 23. Whipping was a punishment in prison. In some U.S. states like Texas and Arkansas, whipping was used to punish the prisoners. It was stopped in 1947 and 1961, respectively. Number 22. Over 2.7 million children in the U.S. have a parent behind bars. That means in 28 children, 1 child has a parent in jail. Even worse than that is the fact that more than 5 million children have had a parent incarcerated at some point in their lives. Researchers believe that this number is lower due to social stigma, and that makes families reluctant to report parental incarceration. So the original number should be much higher than this, which is much worse. Number 21. Most people in jail have yet to be found guilty. In the US, approximately 60% of the people in jail are awaiting trial. They are presumed innocent until proven guilty. They are there only because they can't afford to pay the bail. Number 20. 93% of prison inmates are male, 7% female. 1 in 30 men between the ages of 20 to 34 is behind bars or has been behind bars. There is at least 1 in 13 men behind bars in every U.S. state. Though many more men are in prison than women, there has been a greater increase in the rate of imprisonment for women than that of men since 1980. Of every 100,000 adult women, 82 are imprisoned. Oklahoma has the highest state of female imprisonment at 151 women in every 100,000. Number 19. You can make money in prison. Companies in America can outsource call center duties to prisons. The prisoners make $0.92 per hour to handle calls. Though it isn't a lot, how cool is that? They usually use this money to buy things like call time to call their family and friends. Number 18. You can have cats. Don't want to spend your time in prison alone? Well, you can have cats. A state prison in Indiana allows murderers to adopt cats into their cell so they don't have to be lonely. The cats are believed to improve the mood and temperament of prisoners and also provide some hope for people behind bars. Number 17. Some prisons let mothers keep their kids. Talk about bonding. The Decatur Correctional Center in Illinois allows female prisoners to keep their babies with them in prison for up to 2 years. This gives the babies enough time to bond with their mothers, and the mothers something to look forward to so they remain on their best behavior to get out in time. Number 16. The longest prison sentence ever is 348,912 years. This is the longest prison sentence ever, and it was given to a 22-year-old postman who is accused of failing to deliver 42,768 letters. Weirdest reason to go to jail. Number 15. Scientology has its own prison. This prison is also known as the Hole. Scientology executives are sent here for months or even years of confinement, humiliation, and manual labor. Survivors say it's much worse than a North Korean death camp. Number 14. The US is home to the world's largest jail system. The Men's Central Jail in Los Angeles has the largest jail system with an average of 22,000 inmates. This jail is famous for being overcrowded, having round-the-clock savagery and chaos, and ongoing deputy and inmate violence and clashes. Number 13. Alcatraz was once the only prison to offer hot water. Alcatraz was the first federal prison to offer hot water showers. This was instilled so that prisoners would get used to hot water and therefore find the cold water of San Francisco Bay impossible to endure if they tried to swim to freedom. Talk about smart. Number 12. The first 72 hours after a person is booked into jail is when they are at their highest risk of death. After that, they pretty much blend into the system. Number 11. Louisiana is the prison capital of the world. Louisiana wears the crown as the world's prison capital. In Louisiana, 1 in 86 adults is currently in prison. 53% of these prisoners are housed in local for-profit private prisons which are understaffed. These prisons being understaffed makes this prison more dangerous than state-run facilities. 1 in 14 adults is serving a prison sentence, with 1 in 7 currently in prison, on probation, or on parole. Louisiana also has the harshest prison system in the US, with many non-violent offenders serving lengthy sentences for relatively minor crimes. Minor drug possession can land an arrestee a life sentence. They have the highest incarceration rate in the country. If anything, this only goes to prove that a stronger incarceration system doesn't reduce crime rates. Number 12. People die in prisons every day. In the US prison systems, 12 people die every day, which is about 4,400 people yearly. Most deaths are health-related, such as cancer and heart disease. In local prisons, the top cause of death is suicide, and that makes up 1/3 of all deaths. Most times, it occurs within the first month of incarceration. More than 70% of these suicides occur even before conviction. Number 9. Transgender adults and LGBTQI are imprisoned disproportionately. An estimated 16% of trans people are incarcerated compared to 2.7% of all adults. 13 to 15% of people in detention identify as LGBTQI. A major factor affecting these numbers is the commission of petty crimes associated with displacement, homelessness, and poverty. Number 8. Just 23% of released prisoners stay out of prison. According to stats, only 23% of prisoners released stay out of prison and crime. That is, 4 in 10 prisoners return to state prison within 3 years of being released. They go back in. That's a lot of repeat offenders. This shows that our country has a lot to do with reinstating them back into society so they don't have to go straight back into the system. Number 7. Federal law requires a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years for a first-time non-violent drug offense. 60% of federal drug offenders are subject to this mandatory minimum sentence. Because of this, half of the inmates in federal prisons are serving time for non-violent drug offenses. Number 6. The Smarter Sentencing Act will save a lot. The Smarter Sentencing Act is a bill in the US that will cut minimum mandatory sentencing for drug offenses. If passed into law, this will reduce the number of people to be imprisoned and also the number of people in prison. Doing this will save taxpayers about $24 billion over the next 20 years and save a lot of people from going behind bars for a long time for non-violent drug offenses. Number 5. The US government spends a lot on prisons. The incarceration of prisoners is more expensive than you think. It costs taxpayers about $80 billion to maintain prisons annually. For one prisoner, $29,000 is the average annual cost of incarceration. Per day, it costs about $78 to take care of an inmate nationwide. That's a lot of money going to prisons. State spending on corrections has grown about 300% in just 20 years. In some states, it costs a lot more. In New Jersey alone, it costs them about $253 million to house just death row prisoners. That's $11 million per prisoner yearly. Parole programs cost taxpayers $7.47 per day per parolee. That's a lot. Number 4. Due to overcrowding, violent criminals are getting less time. Due to severe overcrowding in jails and prisons, violent criminals are serving less time and being released early to make room for non-violent drug offenders due to the mandatory minimum sentencing they must serve. And this is just silly. Number 3. There are more jails and prisons than colleges in the US. The US boasts of over 5,000 jails and prisons, which is greater than the number of colleges which it has. Also, in many parts of the US, there are more people in jails and prisons than there are people living in colleges. Number 2. 5 million adults are under parole. Nearly 5 million adults are under probation in the US, and these aren't regarded as part of the prison population. Violations of conditions such as missing appointments, testing positive for drugs, etc. are major reasons for reincarceration of people under parole. Before we look at the craziest fact about prison in the US, if you've been enjoying this video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Also, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on the bell notification so you get notified when we upload a new video. And finally, number 1. The United States has the highest prison population in the world. Talk about leadership. With over 2.2 million people in US jails and prisons, the United States has the highest prison population in the entire world. That number alone is more than the entire population of New Mexico. The population has quadrupled since the 1980s when mandatory minimum sentencing laws for drugs went into effect. The US also has the highest imprisonment rate in the world, with about 724 people in prison for every 100,000 people. There are about 9 million people in prison all over the world. About half of those people are held in the US, Russia, and China. And in fact, the US houses 25% of the entire prison population of the world. That's insane. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss more videos of true crime and much more. Check out this playlist of my top 10 videos of world travel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Take care.